the issue was all driven by the anti-hunting debates that were taking place in Parliament and by the inquiry that had taken place. This was on the occasion of the third bill coming forward to try and ban hunting. But that was really a touchstone issue. It was almost as though rural people were feeling highly disenfranchised, highly ignored, disrespected, and hunting and the attempt to ban hunting almost gave them a language, a way to articulate that sense of concern and powerlessness. So in a way, the march was there to reflect the fact, to emphasise the fact this was a very large and very diverse community that was up in arms. Every time I appeared on TV, or my colleagues did, or people around the countryside did, it appeared in response to some government hunting initiative or some activity from urban-based politicians. The advantage the march gave us, it was our agenda, driven on our terms and at our timetable. And in a way, the marches around the countryside, in the rural cities and towns, were there to, if you like, set the scene for the big march that was coming. And in a way, the government could have backed down, but by not backing down, they created an inevitability about the big event. We did petitions, and I have to say a petition of 1 million signatures is a few boxes. It looks quite big, but it's not nearly as impressive as 500,000 people walking down the street. So there's a physicality about it. Second thing is we don't do it that often in Britain. We don't have big, orderly demonstrations like that in Britain. And we knew we could do it on a scale that hadn't been seen before. And in fact, it's only ever been seen once since on a larger scale, and that was the anti-Iraq war march. Every other demonstration has been significantly smaller by less than half of the number we had. And we knew we could get that number. There was a famous notice put over a bridge near Kendal in Cumbria, which basically said, the last person to leave Cumbria, please switch out the lights. And the third thing was, this was rural, it was the symbolism of the rural heartland of the United Kingdom coming to the capital city, finally feeling so hacked off, so disenfranchised. Their only course of action was to descend on the capital city and demand that they were heard and they were listened to and their issues were addressed. We felt we were taking it over. I felt I've never surfed, but I imagine that's what it feels like to be surfing on, behind a huge, enormous wave coming behind you. There was an inevitability about it. I mean, I was at the front because that was my job, but the march was happening whether I was at the front or not. It didn't matter. It was going to happen. It was going to occur. So when I was in the fortunate position by being at the front, is I entered Parliament Square while it was still quiet. There was nobody there. And yet within 2 minutes the square was flooded with people pouring out in other directions, and then looking down Whitehall seeing literally hundreds of thousands of people following them. So it was emotionally it was very powerful. I think politically the signal it sent was a very powerful, strong feeling that these were ordinary people who were feeling angry enough to literally pour out of the shires of the country, assemble in one of the great parks of London, and then march down the major political thoroughfares and take them over. During the march, the use of the square was very difficult because effectively the march was down Whitehall. We couldn't march in front of Parliament because the road in front of Parliament then just leads down the embankment, which sort of takes you to nowhere, really. So in order for people to get back to their trains and buses, they parted. Half of them went back over down Bridge Street and over Westminster Bridge. They ended up to Waterloo and that sort of area. And the other half veered right in front of what's now the Supreme Court and headed off, up Victoria Street towards Victoria and Paddington and all that. So in a sense, we didn't use the square. The culmination was the point at which we hit the square, where we had a massive screen erected and we had music playing, and it was very interesting. There was an anti-demonstration which made a lot of noise, but it was all drumming, so as far as we were concerned, it all sounded good. They created a good atmosphere for us. And in that sense, it was the actual arrival at the square was important, not the square itself. So that's why it was different from the vigil, where we occupied the square. The problem the square has is it is not designed to allow tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people to pass through it on demonstration. Inevitably, you're forced to one side, so you don't walk in front of Parliament. So something needs to be done to enable that place not just to be a point of assembly, as it works quite reasonably successfully, although it's small at the moment, but as a point of passage. It doesn't work at all. It doesn't make Parliament feel threatened by the numbers of people who walk past.